Hi, everybody. Welcome, everybody. Hope everyone out there is safe and doing well during this really very challenging time we're all in between COVID and all the social unrest. I hope everyone out there is safe and doing okay. So thank you for joining me live today. We are going to talk about today the idea or what's going to be happening with the current suspension on immigration that's in place right now, and also what's going to be happening, if happening, to a possible expansion or another executive order suspending H-1B, OPT, L visas, and other types of non-immigrant work visas that's been on the table for a while. So that is what we are going to talk about today live. We're going to go through some different topics related all to that. And let's get started. If any of you out there do not know who I am Andrea Shev. I am an immigration attorney in Los Angeles, California. I've been doing immigration for almost 20 years. And I do lots and lots of videos and discussions on immigration issues to try to get out there reliable, easy to understand information so the immigration community around the world can have access to the information when they need it. There's so much confusing stuff out there in the media. It's always good to have a nice source you can go to that kind of lays it out plain and simple. No smoke and mirrors, just get what you get, and trying to give you good information and also some information on different topics to teach you about immigration in different areas of immigration. So if you haven't subscribed yet and you're new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe right now. Hit that button. And also, one caveat before we get started, anyone who puts messages, I love the messages during the video. Amazing. Please send me messages, questions. But also after the video is over, if I didn't get to answer your particular question, put it in the comments below when the video gets actually published, because what happens, it gets published afterwards and then I lose access to all that stream of great questions and I won't be able to answer them. So make sure if I didn't get to them, or if you have things to say that you want me to see or comment on, please don't forget to put them in the comments below this video once it's published on YouTube. And then I promise I will get to them. I promise. Okay, let's get started. We are going to break this video down, or this live feed, into 4 different sections. First of all, I'm going to talk about where we are right now, like what is happening at this very moment, what is actually in place right now. Secondly, what would a suspension on work visas look like if it actually happens? Thirdly, what regulations and policy changes to H-1Bs, OPT, that kind of stuff is on the horizon or is being discussed? And lastly, what are my thoughts? Do I think it's going to happen? Do I think that there's going to be more executive orders suspending not only immigration, but suspending different kinds of work visas? Like, what are my thoughts on this? So those are the 4 areas I want to cover during the video, and hopefully we'll have some time for some discussions or some questions at the end that you have related to what I'm going to talk about. So let's get started. First and foremost, where are we today? What's happening actually today, real, in place, not on the horizon or a rumor or a discussion? What is in place? So currently, as of April 23rd, President Trump put an executive order in place suspending immigration, not all immigration. And you can get more information or more details about that executive order that is currently in place on another one of my videos. I will put in the description below a link to it. But it's a video just on that executive order, who is covered, what are the exceptions, and so on and so forth. But in a nutshell, it went into place on April 23rd of 2020. It is currently in place, and it's going to be in place for 60 days. So we're approaching the end of that 60 days. June 15th is about 60 days from when it was put into place. Who was covered under that executive order that banned immigration into the United States? It was mostly people that did not have immigrant visas in hand at the time the order went into place, and was not visas like, or applying for immigrant visas like to U.S. citizen spouse applications. It did not cover people that were already with in hand an immigrant visa. So it was very limited, really, of what it actually covers. On top of that, it kind of was an anomaly, the actual executive order that was put into place, because as we all know, a lot of the consulates are closed and not doing visa interviews anyway. So this suspension for 60 days is kind of didn't really do anything, because if no one can actually go get their visa interview at a consulate anyway to get their immigrant visa, then there's already a ban on basically everything. So it really was put into place, and it is in place, but really is kind of, it doesn't even do anything. So it'll be very interesting to see what's going to happen when that ends, or it's coming to an end in the next couple of days, if President Trump is going to extend that, or he's going to modify it, or what he's going to do with it. But it's definitely coming up in the last 60, the 60 days are coming up now, approaching June 15th. Now, in that actual executive order, there was a provision in there that requested documentation or information on ways that he can then expand this to cover non-immigrant work visa programs. And that's what we're talking about today, really. What information he got, and what does that look like, and what is he thinking, President Trump? What is Congress thinking? What is everybody thinking about how they're going to put into place, if anything, to limit or ban work visas, not just immigrant visas? So that is our focus today. But just to let you know the history of what's going on right now, there's an executive order in place right now. It's subject to being or ending in 60 days, which was June 15th. And right now, he's thinking of what he's going to do with that one, President Trump. And then also, is there going to be another executive order or proclamation put in place for non-immigrant work visas? So during this period of time, over the last 60 days, you can imagine there's been tons and tons of advocating for people who, don't want any limitations on work visa programs. The U.S. economy needs the work visa programs in place. U.S. businesses obviously need them. It's a critical and essential part of our whole makeup in the United States. So who has been advocating? Well, mainly, immigration lawyers like myself. The American Immigration Lawyers Association, AILA, has been doing a tremendous job trying to advocate and educate Congress and the president on the need to have these programs continue. There was an actual letter that was sent by Republicans to President Trump, actual Senator Republicans to President Trump, asking him not to limit the H-1B programs or the H-2A or any other programs related to non-immigrant worker programs. There's another video I did on that if you want more details. Fascinating that they actually did a letter, Republican senators directly to Trump, addressing a lot of the arguments that I've said many times about the need for these workers in the United States. So you can see that, and I'll put the link of that video below also so you can refer back to that video. But basically, there's been a lot of advocating going on over the last 60 days, especially with anxiety that's been developing by all of us, including probably the people that are watching right now, you guys, about what's going to happen. Are they going to extend this further? Are we going to now have in place something that basically shuts down our non-immigrant world, our H-1B visas, our OPT programs, our L visas? What's going to happen? So during this period of time, there's been a lot of advocacy going on in your favor, in favor of keeping things the way they are. So that is basically to lay the framework for you of where we are today. So let's move on now to what a suspension would look like of work visas if it were to happen. Now, where are we getting this information? And one of the main reasons I wanted to do this video is that even though nothing is in place yet, and we cross our fingers that nothing will go in place, I want to do this video because I, as an immigration lawyer and as a member of the American Immigration Lawyers Association, we have access to information that's reliable, information that's directly from the House floor, the Senate floor, directly from the people on the ground legislating and putting together these potential orders that President Trump might put out. So I wanted to get to you in this moments of fear and anxiety and anxiousness about what is really going to happen if it does happen, and what is it going to look like, and how is it going to affect me. I think you all deserve to know something of the inside scoop, if you might say, of what's being talked about and where it's going to go. So let's talk a little bit about what is the reality of what is actually being said, what is actually being contemplated right now in these last days before the actual executive order is up. Barring entry of H-1Bs, H-2Bs, L-1 visas, and J-1 visas is mainly the focus of what they're looking at when they're talking about work visas. Unfortunately, they're focused on those particular visas in general, of the ones that are going to be affected most if they do put something forward. And the biggest group of people that will be affected most likely will be the cap subject H-1Bs coming in to start work October 1, 2020. So the ones that just got selected in registration this past April and applied and are either in the process of getting approved or already approved and are set to come in and start working October 1, 2020. That is really the group that is the focus likely of going to be the suspension or the ban or the halt of coming into the country, either temporarily or who knows what. Now, I'm going to say this 100 million times during this video because I don't want to cause more anxiety here. It hasn't happened yet. It's just we're talking about what is being contemplated seriously that could happen in the next days, okay? With regard to L visas, L1 visas, just to give you an idea, L visas are intercompany transfer visas. They're visas used by international companies that have, let's say, offices in the UK and have an also office in the US, and they transfer employees or key executives or managers or essential employees between the two companies. So the L visa is also a little bit under attack, and it's a focus for possibility being banned or suspended. But they're thinking of, there's one category of the L visa, the executives and the managers that they're thinking will be exempted if they do include the L1 as part of one of the visa categories that will be subject to a possible proclamation banning entry. So that would mean that I guess they're not looking towards banning CEOs and high execs and companies, but they're looking to possibly banning more of the essential employees, the workers that are essential, but not in the executive or high management levels. So that's the word really on the L1s, and if they're coming in, or what the issue is with regard to them. The other category, the J1 visas, the focus for the J1 visa possible ban is really on summer travel programs, trainees, camp counselors. Those kind of people are going to be the ones that are going to be most affected unfortunately, by this ban if it goes into effect. So we're really looking at the three categories of H-1Bs, the current H-1Bs. We're looking at the L1As, but the L1As probably not really the ones that are executives and managers, but maybe essential employees, and then the Js with summer programs and trainee programs and camp counselors, those people. So those are the three categories that they would probably most likely include in this executive order if it were to go through. And that's what's being discussed and tossed around right now on the floor and with President Trump. Okay, so the ban that would happen, if it does happen, as I keep saying it over, if it does happen, is not going to talk about policy changes or substantive programs, that are already in effect. It's not going to really deal with that. It's only going to talk about banning or stopping certain entry into the United States of certain individuals in certain categories of visas, like the H-1B, like the J-1, like the L. It's not going to really address necessarily policy changes. Okay, so policy changes are a whole nother beast, a whole nother category that we're going to talk about right now. But I think that policy changes are very different than a ban, because a policy change has to do with the process of it and the fees and so on and so forth. It's not really saying that you just can't come in. Okay, so I just want to differentiate the two things. So when it does come out, if it does come out, that you understand that unlikely it's going to include a lot of stuff about policy and regulations and procedures. It's going to be more about can't come in, suspend that program, and this is who is exempted. Okay. Thirdly, let's go to the next subject I want to talk about is the policies and regulations, and the policy and regulations that are likely going to be changing, which are also being discussed right now, which probably a lot of you have seen in the media and heard rumors and talking and all this stuff about that. What are they going to change with the H-1B programs, with the J programs, with the L programs? I mean, what's going to change? And we're looking, or the word is on the ground, that it's going to happen around July. So as early as July, we might see these changes going into effect. Now, like I keep saying, and I take a deep breath because it's like so frustrating because we're a little bit in the dark here, but trying to get a little bit of light in there to try to see and give some more clarity of what could happen. So let's jump into what kind of changes might be on the horizon, the imminent horizon. So they're talking about rescinding the STEM OPT regulations and add additional requirements to the 12-month OPT programs. So rescinding, meaning taking away basically this OPT. The STEM OPT program is a longer OPT program than the regular 12-month OPT program. And anyone out there that doesn't know what OPT is, it's basically a program that is allowed for individuals going to U.S. universities that graduate programs here, university programs, and they get a period of time that they can work in the States, either 12 months or whatever the program is, depending on what your major is and if it's STEM or not. They get a period of time that they can work in the United States under OPT. Okay, it's occupational practical training. So it's like training. It's allow them to go into the workforce and work in the particular area that they studied. So that's what OPT is. So what they're thinking of doing is that there was a step forward with the STEM OPT, allowing for a longer period, allowing for different provisions. They're thinking of rescinding that. And they're thinking of also putting more regulations or more requirements on the 12-month OPT program. Not great news, but not news of like they're getting rid of the OPT program. That would be worse news. So the word is it's not that they're actually going to get rid of the OPT program, it sounds like, but they're actually just going to maybe modify it. Hopefully not modify it enough where it becomes ridiculous and you're not going to be able to even get any benefit from it, but modifying it enough where we'll probably feel it, unfortunately. The other thing they're talking about in policy changes is the H-1B program regulations. H-1B program, as I'm sure a lot of you are aware, has been a very, very difficult struggle for immigration attorneys, for U.S. employers, for employees to go through more and more over the last years. This hurdles that we've had to jump through to get H-1Bs approved has been tremendously difficult for everyone involved in the program. That's why I always think it's kind of ironic, or I don't know, I don't want to say funny, but in a way it's funny, where people that are saying, oh, we're giving away jobs and it's so easy and U.S. companies want to hire foreigners versus U.S. citizens. But believe me, it's not fun. And I'm sure if any of you have gone through the program, it's not fun to go through this program. So it's been difficult. So these provisions look like they're going to try to make it even more difficult. They're going to start looking closer at the employer-employee relationship on an application for an H-1B. Employer-employee relationship is like, what does that mean? What does it look like? Because there's been a lot of discussions about what is that? What does it look like? What does it mean? The employer-employee relationship has been attacked on a lot of applications. The big one is the definition of specialty occupation. What is a specialty occupation? It's always a question, what is a specialty occupation when you file an H-1B visa? But they're going to probably put more restrictions on it, more definitions, more parameters on it to make it even more difficult for people to classify themselves, or the businesses to classify their employees that they want to bring in on H-1Bs as specialty occupations. So that's going to be another one. Wage levels is going to probably be played with also. We've already been dealing with a lot of wage levels, the arguments that level 1 wages, if some of you are not aware, there's different levels of wages based on the Department of Labor, based on what the Department of Labor puts out for different occupations. And, immigration's come back and said a level 1 wage is not necessarily a specialty occupation because it's more like an entry level position. So there's been a lot of pushback and issues related to level wages. So we're going to probably see more of that going on. And then, of course, always, fees will go up. Fees are already being discussed going up for everything, but they'll try to do a very large increase in fees to discourage probably U.S. employers to file for U.S. employees even further on the H-1B program. They're talking about $20,000 increases. I mean, it's crazy. So that will be another thing to put on the table to help, I don't want to say help, to discourage the use of the H-1B visa program by U.S. employers. So those are some of the things. The last one is there's talk of rescinding the H-4 employment authorization. So there's some H-4, which is family members that are now in the recent years been allowed to work in the United States on a general work authorization card, so they can work anywhere if their spouse was an H-1B. Not all H-4s can do it. There's only certain ones, but they're thinking of rescinding that employment authorization. So not great news, but the ones that they're looking at, I mean, at least they're not talking about getting rid of things. The only thing it looks like they're getting rid of possibly is the H-4 employment authorization, and maybe rescinding the STEM OPT regulations, which would be really sad because we really, really need STEM people in our country right now working in those jobs. So that gives you kind of a summary of some of the things that are definitely in the minds and on the floor in the House and Senate and with President Trump, and in lots of advocates across the board on both sides that are talking about these are the things that they're seeing that they can do, that they can change with regulations with regard to the H-1B, OPT, and J visas and L visas. These are the ones that they're focusing on the most. Now, as I said, none of this has gone into play, but they're saying that it could, if any of this does go into play, some either these exact ones that I've mentioned, or something that looks kind of like these in some other form by earliest even July of this year. So we're looking at these things happening within the next months, not years. So that's something to keep in mind. Okay, and then lastly, I want to talk about my thoughts. My thoughts on, is this going to happen? Is this something that's really going to happen? Are we going to have in the next few days an extension further of the immigrant ban from outside the United States? Are we still going to have a ban on individuals that are extraordinary, that are trying to get immigrant visas, not being able to get those immigrant visas because those are one of the main categories that are banned from coming in? We have people sitting out there who are extraordinary and on many, many levels, and they are part of this ban. So if the consuls start taking interviews and they start opening up, which we hope that they do in the next weeks, that they will not be able to go for their interviews and they'll be stuck. So will this happen? I want to talk about that. And I want to talk about, do I think it's going to happen that we're going to now have a new executive order or proclamation stopping or banning, H-1Bs, changing OPTs, doing something related to the non-immigrant visa worker programs? Is it going to happen? Well, stepping back a few days ago, in the news media, I'm sure all of you heard or have seen in the news media, Donald Trump or President Trump put out a number of statements that led us all to believe that things are looking a lot better than they are, a lot stronger economy than we thought they would be due to the pandemic, due to COVID-19. He actually said on June 5th, I'm reading this directly so I don't get it wrong, now they thought the number would be a loss of 9 million jobs, but it was a gain of almost 3 million jobs. He also stated the other day, and I think we're going to have a very good upcoming few months. I think you're going to have a very good August, a very good July, but maybe spectacular September, but a spectacular October, November, and December. And next year is going to be one of the best years we've ever had economically. So here we go. President Trump has the right to do these orders and these proclamations based on emergency measures when there's a national emergency. So if things are going so well, right, if things are so rosy and the economy is starting to pick up and he expects it to pick up so quickly in the next months, then is there a national emergency enough to stop immigration and work visas? Is there enough of an emergency? Is there an emergency at all in the realm of stopping workers from coming in? Well, if it is the reality, and he is the president, right? If that is the reality that he's going to, that it's getting to a point when things are looking better and the job market's opening up and so on and so forth, then why is it the need to stop those workers? So that is part of the issue, right? That's an issue. Is like, is there a national emergency enough to do this? So it's all about the emergency powers that allow the President Trump to block entry. But if the outlook is so good, then why are we taking emergency action and blocking entry to critical and essential workers that our U.S. economy needs? So my thoughts are with my anticipation of the question of like, do you think it's going to happen? Well, I don't think it's going to happen because it shouldn't happen. There's no reason for it to happen if this is really the reality that we're seeing just a few days ago on the news directly out of the president's mouth. So if things are moving in the right direction, we shouldn't really have to worry about that. If the job market is not as bad a place as he thought, meaning the President Trump thought, then again, why do we need to limit entry or block immigration to protect U.S. workers? Because the whole idea of blocking immigration, one of the ideas in the proclamation, it says directly, is to allow the U.S. citizens who are unemployed to step up and take those positions before foreign workers would come in and take them. But if we don't have an issue with that anymore, and with our economies moving, in that direction as opposed to that direction, then is it really necessary? Is it something that really makes sense if you believe in the first place, if that foreign workers take U.S. workers' jobs, which is not true at all. But if you were to say that they do take U.S. workers' jobs and make that argument, the devil's advocate argument against it, does it even make sense if you're saying that the job market or the economy is doing much better? It doesn't even really make sense. So either way you look at it, I don't see any reason in the national interest or in an emergency situation to enact any more legislation or any more orders or proclamations stopping or banning entry of anybody in the U.S. with regard to foreign workers or immigrants. I don't think it makes any logical sense based on what the President Trump is saying. So I also take the approach that in general, which I'm sure if all of you have seen my videos and heard me speak, I always try to educate the fact that the H-1B program, especially, and even the L program and a lot of our other programs, the O visas, the P visas, these are not visas that give employment to people that are jobs that our U.S. citizens could take. Because if that was the case, then they would have taken them before. And our job market does not have enough of that intellectual capacity for these type of jobs to cover all these jobs, especially in the STEM areas of science and technology and engineering and math. We don't have enough people graduating from our universities and enough people in those fields to take those jobs. And that's forcing our US companies to go out and petition for foreign nationals to take the jobs. And like I said at the beginning of this video, and I say all the time, believe me, the US companies would not, absolutely not, go through this process if they could just go out and hire a US citizen to take the position. They would save a lot of heartache and a lot of mess if they did not have to go and do that. So I think that it's really critical to understand from my perspective, not only do I think that possibly we're not in a national emergency situation for him to be able to even have the power to do that, if what he has said the past week is actually the case, that our economy is on the rise, that things are looking great, we're gonna have an amazing the rest of the year, spectacular, then really the whole basis of doing these orders are mute. I mean, there's no reason to do them. I mean, there's no reason at all. And on top of that, we still need these workers for our economy. So we need to have these workers come in and work here. So, there's no, in my opinion, there's no rational reason to actually do anything related to even the changes in regulations, let alone a new executive order, either extending the ban on immigration, but also creating a new executive order stopping H-1B workers and L workers and J workers from coming in, or doing any kind of regulations to hamper the OPT program or the H-1B program or any other program in the United States. I think that in the other way, we should, if I had it my way, we should go the other way and allow even more foreign workers to come in with less restrictions that have the skills and the education necessary to help our economy grow and expand like it has been for many, many years, and continue into this new age of competition that we're entering into. Okay. So let me see, I know there's lots of questions over here. let me see if I can take a quick look, if you guys will let me take a quick look and see if I see any that I can answer really quickly here. I think so. 2 questions. Do you think that there will be a distinction between cap subject and cap exempt H-1B visas? Yes, there has been discussion that just cap subject petitions would be the case, not cap exempt cap. I can't even talk. Cap exempt ones would not be. So that's the discussion right now, is it's mostly focusing on cap subject ones. Modified wage requirements apply to current H-1Bs. If they change the wage requirements, they're really focusing on the actual applications that are going in, not necessarily if you're already in a position and you're already filed an LCA, which all of you know what that is. If you have an H-1B, if you file LCA and there's an actual required wage on it, they're not going to say, oh, now it has to be a level 4 because you only had a level 1. I think they're going to probably most likely work through those new regulations or changes on new applications coming through, not going retroactively backwards. Okay, there's that question. This is only for people who currently are outside the U.S. What will happen to an F1 student who's currently in the U.S. and selected for H-1B in April? That's a really good question, because the law of the orders deal with just people that are sitting outside the United States that are going to be having approved H-1B petitions in hand and are going to have to go to the consulate and then submit at the border coming in with an H-1B visa. So we have to see what happens if it's going to also affect the change of statuses in the United States. Most likely not, because executive orders usually deal with outside banning of coming in. So we don't think it's going to happen, but really we're going to have to wait and see. But that's a really good question to ask. I see only banning entry shouldn't affect people who are in the U.S. Am I right? So mostly like this will impact people who doesn't hold a U.S. degree, since U.S. graduates should be here. Again, I think it really depends on what the executive order comes down with, if it even happens. The idea that will we have to worry about the people who are in the country, let's say on a certain visa currently, and then they're actually changing their status to an H-1B, would it even affect them at all? And the answer is most probably not, but we have to wait and see. I can't tell you that 100%, or I would be lying to you, and I'm not going to lie to you. So the issue is that we have to wait and see what the parameters of it are. But really it's talking about people coming into the United States under H-1B work visas. Okay. I have lots of questions here, and I would love to answer all of them. Will there be any impact on extensions of H-1B? We hope not. We hope that extensions of H-1B, again, because extension of H-1B would be happening inside the United States, and you would already be in H-1B status. So that would mean that they would be suspending the entire program. Now, I can't predict, and there's been no discussion, but there might be changes to the requirements on an extension of an H-1B. But I don't think they're going to shut down the H-1B program in the United States. So if you're on an H-1B and you're extending your current H-1B, I don't think the likelihood that they're going to say you can't extend it, but they might change the parameters of the rules of the H-1B. Okay, so can you please do me a huge favor, all of you, because I would love to answer as many questions I can, and also any questions you have that are great questions. I really want to get those answers to everyone else who watches this video, or also, is on the video and wants the answers to those questions. Once the video is published, please take that question and put it in the comments below. So I have those questions, because once this video is published, I lose access to all your questions on the side and I can't answer them. So if you could do that for me, I would love that, because then it would give me opportunity to really give you a really strong answer and take my time and really answer the question with the proper attention it deserves, because I appreciate every single one of your questions out there, and I appreciate you guys watching. I think it's really important to have a discussion about this with an immigration attorney, that I'm in this every day, all the time. So, and I'm really connected to the political environment with regard to, to all these issues. So it gives me a great opportunity to really connect with you directly, and be able to give you some really hard information that comes directly from the people that are dealing with this every single day in Congress, on the floor, in Immigration Lawyers Association, which is advocating constantly for the immigration community on the floor of this, of the House. And it gives me a great opportunity to do this. So I really appreciate it and would love to answer those questions. So please put as many questions as you can below. I will get to them, I promise. It was wonderful spending this time with all of you. I like to keep these live videos to about a half hour so I don't make you guys too crazy listening to too much or dragging on and on. But I'm going to do them all the time. If something happens in the next couple of days, I do plan on doing another video with the parameters if it does come out. But I will tell you, I am crossing my fingers and toes and everything else to make sure and hope that nothing does change. The executive order or the proclamation banning immigration goes away. And we're in a position where we can somewhat, whatever that means, somewhat get back to the new normal of whatever that's going to be, but maybe move the focus away from immigration because we need immigrants and we need foreign workers to make this country continue to be as strong and as competitive it is in the market. So we need to nurture that environment. We need to actually not push back on it, and we need to bring it in and nurture it going forward. Okay, I hope all of you are safe out there. I hope you stay safe with everything going on. It's a crazy time right now. Please, again, subscribe, watch my other videos. There's lots of videos on different types of immigration issues and topics. Subscribe, like the videos. Thank you so much for joining in with me today, and we will see each other very soon. Hopefully not to discuss another order, but if we do, I'll be here for all of you. Have a wonderful afternoon, evening, morning, wherever you are in the world, and talk to you soon.